Commanders hire Dan Quinn to match with their new general manager, Adam Peters, to lead this franchise into the future.
The way that we live is not for everybody, okay? It's not, all right? Because we're going to run and put our bodies on people in a violent manner.
Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the blues, we'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, I had a chance to watch the film with the mob yesterday, and trying to find a good way to put this. It was ugly, but a lot of the mistakes that I saw were correctable. And there are things that are apparent, such as talent is a big deal, right? Lack of talent, for that matter. That's not something, and I got into a debate, not necessarily a debate. I had to make a statement to one of the mob members during the film session because that member in particular wanted to keep focusing on things that weren't done in the offseason to help Jayden. And to that person's credit, they predicted a lot of the things that are happening now, right? They were very adamant that this exact thing would happen, that we would get to a point in the season where the lack of talent surrounding Jayden was going to start to hinder this offense. Now, while we all are aware that we're in the infant stages of this recalibration, and so I wasn't expecting this crazy turnaround. Like, starting 7-2 blew my mind. I wasn't expecting that. That's not what I thought we were getting when this season first started off, right? Week 1 made me feel like, hey, I know what this is. Saddle up. It's going to be a long year, right? But it's going to be fun. There are going to be twists. There are going to be turns. There are going to be ups. There are going to be downs. There are going to be peaks. There are going to be valleys. But when it's all said and done, hopefully we're competing for something meaningful in December, into January. Well, the 7-2 start ensured that at worst case, we'll be competing for something in December, into January. Will we make it across the finish line as one of the 7 best teams in the conference? Who's to say? Time will tell. But we knew that we weren't going to be able to fix everything this offseason. That was a given. So I said to that person, you can be one of 2 people. And, you know, my wife is really big on this. She works in the school system, does my wife. And one of the things that drives her nuts is when the faculty and staff complain about things and resources that they don't have, instead of talking about solutions to try and fix the problem. My wife is solutions oriented. So am I. We know what the problem is already. We know we don't have the talent of a Baltimore or a Philadelphia or even a Dallas for that matter. We know we don't have the talent of the Chiefs or the Lions or the upper echelon, the upper crust of the NFL. We're fully aware of that. We weren't supposed to have that level of talent this year. The only reason that expectations exist is because of what we did in the first 9 weeks, starting 7-2. But guess what? We're here now. We've lost 3 straight. We're 7-5. We have what we have. We had the same talent when we were 7-2. Nothing's changed. As a matter of fact, we made a trade for a guy when we were 7-2 to make us better. And that guy hasn't played yet, and I'm not upset. about that because we knew what we were getting ourselves into when we traded for him. But we even tried to upgrade the roster to make it better at 7-2. But my point was to that member is I'm not in the business of complaining about what we don't have around Jayden at this point. That's not going to solve the problem to help us beat the Titans or the Saints or the Eagles the second time around or the Falcons or the Cowboys the second time around. So lamenting over not adding a receiver at the trade deadline or not being more aggressive in the receiver market overall in the offseason, this, that, and the third, that's not going to help us solve the problem. So I really don't care to discuss that any longer. We know what our roster is. Let's come up with solutions to fix what we can with what we have. That's what I'm all about. And watching the film from Week 12's performance versus Dallas was frustrating because this wasn't a talent issue as much as people like to make it out to be. This boiled down to execution, taking advantage of opportunities that existed, wanting it more, hustle, activity, determination, grit, toughness. And then we need somebody to make a play. We need guys to step up. We need a spark right now. This team looks tired offensively. The coaching staff looks tired. The players on the field look tired. The veracity that we saw from this offense, the creativity we saw from this offense, the playmaking we saw from this offense, it's just not there. It's non-existent. There were opportunities galore in this game. It's so frustrating when you go back and watch because there were so many opportunities to win this game, and we didn't take advantage. And let's start with Cliff Kingsbury. Lots been made of his play calling. Is this the Cliff, right? Is this the regression? I'll say this on his behalf. Cliff can be better. The concepts aren't hard to defend. He's not being as creative in the run game, in the screen game. He's not putting players in the best positions to succeed necessarily. We haven't seen enough RPO here of late. That was a staple earlier in the season when we were successful. It was really good against Pittsburgh, 3 weeks ago. We haven't seen a lot of the RPO game each of the last 2 weeks. I thought when we saw diversity on Sunday versus Dallas, there were opportunities for those plays to work if guys executed. The lack of execution right now is startling. Okay. That's going to be a large crutch of what we talk about tonight. But while Cliff can be more creative and be more dynamic with his play calls, put guys in better positions to succeed, the calls that he is making are good enough to get the job done if guys just execute. Now, that said, he still needs to be better. Put guys in better positions to succeed. You're getting a lot of 5-man pressures, 6-man pressures on third down. Teams trying to speed us up when we get into manageable down and distances, and we're running too far routes down the field. You know, we're running guys 15 yards down the field when we need 4 yards on third down. That, to me, that's not winning football. It's not smart football, especially when you're struggling, right? If you got it like that, go ahead, do your thing. But we don't have it like that right now. We're a team that needs to see production on third down, that needs to see a first down. We're like a shooter that needs to see the ball go through the basket right now. We're struggling. So I don't think Cliff's play calling has been solely to blame for the struggles, right? If we're assigning blame with the pie method, Cliff gets a quarter of the blame, 25%. The next percent would probably be 25 again. And I would put it on the execution. You know what? I take that back. I'll put it on the lack. I'll say 20% lack of talent. Right? Lack of talent. It's not something that we weren't privy to when we started 7-2. We knew about this before the season started. It is what it is, right? You can work around that. But the other 55% is the lack of execution. Guys simply not doing their job. And it starts with the quarterback, Jayden Daniels. He can be better. And yeah, we're asking a lot of a rookie quarterback, but that's the nature of the business. We drafted him number 2 overall. We don't have a ton of talent around him. We got enough to survive and win games against lesser opponents, and we need to do that. And he has to do his part, and he wasn't very good on Sunday. He wasn't. He can be better, okay? And I saw things from him in the game that speak to a guy that seems to have fallen back into bad habits. Because, again, and how I always like to phrase it is, and I think I talked about this on the Commanders Kings show yesterday. And I think Rico put it best when he said, you know, this team has gone back to factory default. I think that's a great way to describe where we are right now. And that includes Jayden Daniels. Early on, first game of the season against Tampa, he wasn't seeing the field well. He was tucking and running. You know, he was bailing out of the pocket. Now, there was pressure too. Let's not fool ourselves. There was pressure as well, but he was bailing out of the pocket. He wasn't standing tall. And then early in the Giants game, he was doing the same thing. And remember, it wasn't until he took that hit and got injured and had to leave the game for a play that he started to sit in the pocket, settle down, and kind of got into a different groove. And it was at that point where he started to get really surgical, you know, dissecting defenses and pinpoint accuracy and, you know, quick decisions. Okay, first read isn't open, second read, I'm getting into my third read. Or don't like what I see, I'm going to check it down to Zach Ertz. So I'm going to check it down to the running back. He was very decisive. If he didn't like what he saw and there was an opportunity to run, he would take off and he would run. We also saw the evolution of him using his legs to set up the pass, right? Opponents like Cincinnati, and Arizona, and Cleveland in particular, he was extremely decisive as a passer outside of the pocket, extending plays with his legs. It made me feel like, because that was my biggest knock on Jayden coming out of LSU, is that he doesn't extend plays to be a passer, only to be a runner. It was so refreshing to see him change that up in just the first 5 weeks of the season that I was convinced that that was a discussion that we didn't need to have anymore. He had already fixed it, which was amazing that early in his career to do that. The following week, after week 5, week 6 against Baltimore, I thought we had a breakthrough with Terry McLaurin, where Terry, you know, told him, hey, you can trust me. The fourth down throw, when we had to have it, the third down throw, these were all trust throws. Tight windows, guy draped all over Terry, ball perfectly placed, and you're just like, wow, and in awe of that connection and what it could be. And so I didn't think we needed to have the, hey, you need to feed 17 discussion. I didn't think we had to have that. Thought that was already established in Baltimore back in week 6. You fast forward to week 12 against Dallas, and it's like that injury against the Panthers in week 7 set him back to his factory default settings. We're back to talking about bailing out of the pocket way sooner than he needs to. We're talking about him, locking on the receivers. We're talking about throwing almost exclusively to the right side of the field. We're talking about him not looking to be a passer outside of the pocket. We're talking about all the things that we were talking about earlier in the season that we had thought we had gotten past. And then we're talking about, hey, you need to get the ball to 17. Noah Brown isn't your number one receiver, right? The offensive line hasn't been sharp. They got beat up in that game against Dallas. I mean, Micah Parsons was a one-man wrecking crew. He beat Cosme. He beat Trent Scott. He beat Nick Allegretti, right? He beat Tyler Biadasz and Allegretti on the same play for a sack. Golston was problematic in the game. He batted the ball down because he beat Trent Scott. He caught an interception on the screen because 3 offensive linemen, one barely got a piece of him. The other 2 let him pass him without touching him, and he ended up getting to B-Rob, who needed to catch that football. Forget about everything else. B-Rob essentially gave that football to Golston, right? He essentially gave the football to that defensive lineman. Catch the damn ball, right? Remember that screen we ran to Austin Eckler versus the Giants in week 2? Cliff dialed it up again. And Jayden goes to roll out to his right, and there's immediate pressure. And so with Micah Parsons, they don't block him because he wasn't supposed to be blocked in the play. But somebody, at the end, I think the tight end was supposed to be able to get a piece of him. He couldn't. And he didn't chase the bait of, the fake and all the offensive linemen rolling out to the left. And so he gets to Jayden immediately. Noah Brown, I think, was supposed to block him. He really doesn't. And so Noah Brown effectively becomes his outlet, and he has to get it to Noah Brown. But he was setting up the screen to B-Rob, and there was a wall set up for B-Rob. Poor execution. We run a jet sweep to De'Ami Brown. And this thing has legs. Early in the ball game, on a possession where we ended up settling for a field goal. And it was the first possession, matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken. It was either that play or the one to Austin Eckler. It was the one to Austin Eckler that I'm thinking about. The one to Austin Eckler where he comes across in jet motion, they give it to him, and he gets to the outside. And not one, but 2 blockers can't block a corner in Jordan Lewis. I said, well, damn, what is he, the Incredible Hulk? Terry McLaurin with a half-ass block. Then OZ, I think, comes over, piss poor block, and he blows the whole thing up and makes a tackle on a play that was blocked to probably score a touchdown. This is why you get guys like Terry more involved early in the game. Not that Terry shouldn't still do his job, but you're probably more likely to get a guy blocking his ass off. I can tell you as a former athlete, I was more likely to want to play defense and rebound the basketball and do all of those things if I got involved in the offense when I got in the game. Nobody wants to just be a decoy or being used for specific things on the defensive side and doesn't get rewarded on the offensive side. You're more engaged if you've already touched the ball. You're more likely to give that extra effort on offense. That's human nature. It's the little things, right? Little missed opportunities, a lot of little missed opportunities in this game that add up. There's so many things we can do better. Now, I think defensively we are what we are, right? If Dante Fowler Jr. doesn't win, or there isn't like an offensive line breakdown that allows a guy that shouldn't win to win, or Frankie Louvu doesn't win, or we don't blitz and somebody gets home, nobody else is capable of winning on this defensive line right now. Other than Louvu, when they bring him as a edge rusher, and Dante Fowler Jr. Nobody else is really capable of winning a one-on-one matchup. So you're going to have to run games and twists and stunts and blitzes, and you're going to have to try to confuse the defense, and maybe bringing back maybe bringing on Marshawn Lattimore allows you to get a little bit more creative with some of your defensive play calls, and maybe we can then see some pressure be generated because you can be a little bit more aggressive. We've heard Joe Witt Jr. talk about wanting to blitz a guy like Jeremy Chin. Maybe you can do that more now that you can keep one safety high. That safety can cheat over to pro zone side, and you can leave Marshawn Lattimore one-on-one. And now you can bring that other safety down into the box, and he can blitz and be more aggressive in that regard, right? But our defense is what it is. We are who we are defensively, for the most part. Offensively, we can be better. It starts with Jayden. You know, I think he has to be, like, right now it feels like he's locked in on Noah Brown. If you watch the film, he is predetermining before the snap where he's going with the football a lot of times, it feels like. And a lot of times it's either Noah Brown or it's to Zach Ertz, right? And then Terry McLaurin is the third option after those two. If you look at the targets, it feels like on most games here of late, Noah Brown is leading the team in targets, followed by Zach Ertz, and then Terry usually is in third. That's what it feels like. Now, the numbers may not suggest that, but I can tell you that in this game in particular, he was predetermining where he was going with the football. And I'd like to see him be a little bit more decisive in going through his progressions. Like, hey, if that guy's open and you want to stay on him, fine. But there were times where he would lock onto a side of the field, it's not open, and instead of him getting off of that and getting to an open receiver, he'd lock on, and then by the time he decided to do something else, he's going to bail and run now at this point. Now he's not comfortable. The alarm is going off in his head. I got to get out. And if he would have just got off of that, it wasn't open. You could see it wasn't open immediately. Get off of that. Get to Ertz, who is open. Early in the season, he was doing that, right? So it's execution. Quarterback, offensive line, guys got to block, right? Guys got to make plays. There are opportunities for this thing to get turned around, but it's going to take a collective effort. It's going to take a collective effort. And I wish there was a magic wand that we could wave to get the intended results and the desired effect that we are looking for, but there isn't. They got to go out and they got to want it. I felt like watching that game, Dallas wanted it more than we did. That was the first time this season that I felt like the opponent wanted it more than we did, and it was obvious. And it wasn't a lack of effort. They just wanted it more. You could see it. We were kind of going through the motions like, hey, they suck. They've lost 5 in a row. We should win this game. And Dallas was playing with a sense of urgency that we lacked. I didn't feel that way against Philadelphia. I just felt like we ran out of gas and they were better than us. I didn't feel that way against Pittsburgh. I just felt like we messed up. We missed opportunities. We gave them the game. Coupled with the officials chiming in and sprinkling in their input on the outcome. But never did I feel like in any of the other losses this season, the other team wanted it more than us. Dallas wanted it more than we did. We got to be hungry again. And I'd even tell you that the thing that DQ said on Monday feels more true than anything else. We got to play loose. Feels like we're playing tight. Feels like we're playing tight. Did you notice? And again, I told you, I don't think the end of the game situations are real football. But did you notice how much looser we played and how much more fluid we looked at the end of the game? And that includes Jayden Daniels. His best work in the pocket was at the end of the game. And yes, guys were a lot more open at the end of the game than they were earlier in the game, and the coverage was a lot tighter. So the decisions weren't as easy to make. But even removing that from the equation, there still was crumbling pockets, guys around him, trash in his face, and he didn't flinch. Whereas all game long, he was kind of antsy. He wanted to get out. You know, he wasn't comfortable. He was seeing things that weren't there. That game was on the line late. He just stood in there. It's like the clutch gene kicked in and he became the Jayden that we saw earlier this season. I need that from the opening snap of the game. Hopefully we can get back to that. Hopefully all of this adversity could yield us big dividends. Or it could be the beginning of the end of this season for us. Only one way to find out. But I'll say this, as bad as it was watching that film, it was tough. A lot of mistakes, a lot of missed opportunities. I mean, it's hard to watch us have the football at the Dallas 40, the Dallas 47, the Dallas, 42, and come away with just 3 points. It's hard to watch us have a possession where we block a punt, get a first down, we're at the Dallas 29-yard line, and you throw an interception. Give it right back to them. It's hard to watch a possession where you take the ball away from the Cowboys running back and you proceed to then go 3 and out and don't even get any points out of it. It's hard to watch. We were bad. The 3 straight runs out of bounds, comical. One of those, if Jayden just looks up and sees Luke McCaffrey standing 5 yards in front of him off to his left, it's probably a touchdown. But he had no intentions of throwing the football once he turned the corner. He was content with running out of bounds, losing yards, and forcing us to punt the football. That's got to change. It's got to change. And so hopefully some of these things start to hit home, adjustments are made, and we see a better, sharper, more focused team on Sunday. Look, this team, we've had 3 straight week 14 buys. 3 straight. This is the tiredest I've seen. Is that a word? Tiredest? I think I'll just go with exhausted. I think I just made a word up. This is the most exhausted I've seen one of these teams in the last 3 years. We are limping to this finish line, to this bye week, rather. We need this in the worst way. Last year, the season was over. They could have ended our season at the bye week, we would have done it last year. We could care less, right? Dallas kicked our ass on Thanksgiving. The Dolphins kicked our ass the next week, and we were glad to not have to play a game. We were hoping that they would just cancel the rest of our season, give us losses for the rest of the games, so we could just get the number 2 pick and go on about our merry way. The year before that, we were upset because we thought we should have beat the Giants. We finished with a tie, and we were talking shit like, hey, we'll kick their ass when we get them at home after the bye week. But that wasn't a tired team. This team is tired, especially on offense. But they got another game, and they got to figure this shit out. And fast. Fast. So let's go to in other news where we heard from DQ. We heard from Jayden Daniels today. We'll talk about what was said there. But before we do that, as we always do, let's take a look at the injury report for both teams ahead of this Week 13 contest, starting first with the good guys. So a pretty positive injury report. We're going to talk a lot about Marshawn Lattimore and Brian Robinson Jr. here in a second. But Austin Eckler and Andrew Wiley, as DQ said at his press conference, were the two guys who weren't practicing. Everybody else was practicing in some capacity except for Ertz and Farrell, which were both non-injury related, right? Essentially, with Farrell, we've been kind of monitoring his knee all season long after he missed a couple of games due to a knee injury. They've been monitoring him and keeping him fresh by giving him a day off. Normally, the day off for him is Thursday, right? He practices limited on Wednesday. He's off Thursday and then practices on Friday. They decided to just give him today off. Maybe his knee didn't respond the way that it normally does. Whatever the case may be, it's a rest for Cleveland Farrell. He should be fine. Same with Zach Ertz. Eckler and Wiley are both in the concussion protocol. We've already established neither one of them are going to play this week. And I think most of us thought that Brian Robinson Jr. also was not going to play this week. We did sign Chris Rodriguez Jr. back to the roster. We talked about that yesterday. But maybe part of the reason that they didn't sign, they brought in James Robinson, formerly undrafted of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Boston Scott, formerly of the Philadelphia Eagles, both in for workouts yesterday, but they did not sign either one of them. And maybe the reason that they didn't feel obligated to do so was because Brian Robinson Jr. was a little bit better off than they initially anticipated he would be, post game. So, B-Rob spoke to the media in the locker room today, and he pretty much said he feels good and feels like he's on track to be able to play this Sunday, which is quite a surprise after watching the injury, him trying to come back and playing for about a good 15 snaps after the initial injury and then not being able to finish the game. So you could only hope that he'd be ready post-bye, but it looks like he may be able to go pre-bye, which I don't think a lot of us thought would be the case. We'll monitor that situation throughout the course of the week. I'll wait with bated breath because we've heard, players tell us, "Oh, I'm good. I should be able to go," and then not be able to play. But the fact that he wasn't out today, pretty damn interesting, to say the least. I'm shocked. All right. Allegretti, ankle, full. Fowler Jr., hip, full. Noah Igbenogany, thumb, full. Jordan McGee, elbow, full. So now you get to the elephant in the room. Marshawn Lattimore and his infamous hamstring has not played a single game. Washington has not won a game since they've traded for him. A lot of fans are upset. I knew this would happen when they traded for him and he wasn't ready to contribute right away. Fans would turn on him. I'm seeing a lot of that. At this point, I thought he would be ready for the Cowboys game. Clearly, DQ's language at the beginning of last week told us he wasn't going to be ready for that game, and he wasn't. I think DQ's language this week points to him being ready to play this week. I told you last week that DQ's language pointed to him potentially being ready to go this week. We're off to a good start. Limited today. All right. Limited today was Marshawn Lattimore. Now, the key is going to be the next time they practice. I'm not sure if the players are going to practice on Thanksgiving. I'm not sure if there's an actual work day for the players and coaches tomorrow. They may get the day off. We'll see. If they do work tomorrow, if there is practice, that's going to be the $1 million question as to what Marshawn Lattimore's status is for tomorrow. Even if it's limited, we're still in good shape. If he is a DNP tomorrow, that's not a good thing because that means the hammy did not respond the way they wanted it to after some work. They're not pushing him hard. Normally, they push guys hard on Friday, right? Thursday, Friday, that's the day they try to push to see what it's going to be. Thursday is really the day because that's a full day of work. So we're going to push you Thursday, see how you respond Friday. If you're good to go, then we're going to rock, right? If he practices in any capacity tomorrow, we're trending in the right direction. Okay. You'd like to see a full at some point this week from him. But you just want to see 3 consecutive days of practice for Marshon Lattimore. I think we're getting close. I've seen clips of him working out with Benjamin St. Juste on the side. He seems to be getting some of those movements back. Again, the key is, can he open up, turn, and run, right, without any hindrance? I think DQ talked about him doing speed work and open up and running over last weekend. So we're getting close. I think he's going to play this week. I do. But again, we'll keep monitoring that situation. That could be, we need a spark, man. And I know he doesn't play offense, but we need a spark because his presence could lead to forcing turnovers, to getting off the field on third downs and forcing punts and giving the offense better field position. They had great field position on Sunday. Okay. So again, he doesn't play offense, but he may be able to spark something with this team. So we need a spark. I know that much. And maybe that spark is Marshon Lattimore. We need a spark. You go to the ops, and there's a lot of impactful names on this list, but I don't think any of them are going to miss this game. So let's go through this list. A lot of names of guys that are impactful players for the Titans on this list. Luke Gifford, linebacker, hamstring, didn't practice. Arden Key, back. He's big. Yeah, he's a big part of what they do defensively. Now, Wednesday, I've already told you, is if there was ever a head fake day, it's Wednesday. So I don't get caught up in Wednesdays. Thursdays and Fridays are where it's at. Thursdays in particular. Okay. So Arden Key not practicing on Wednesday, I'm not buying it. If he can't go, that's a big deal. Harold Landry, that's clearly rest. It's non-injury related. He's fine. Okay, so don't worry about him. Roger McCreary, knee, didn't practice. Again, that's a big part of their secondary. So he's a solid nickel defender. Calvin Ridley, that's a big one. That's the biggest one on this list. Ankle, didn't practice. We'll keep an eye on that. Because right now, as it stands, if Marshon Lattimore can't go, we have no one to cover Calvin Ridley. No one can cover him on this team. So that's a pretty big deal. Jeffrey Simmons, rest. He's playing. So you can come off of that one. Leroy Watson, tackle, a back. He's not important. He doesn't start. He's not a primary offensive lineman. Chidobe Awuzie, back, limited. If he can miss, that's good. He's a good corner. If he can be out of this game, good. But we'll see. Jarvis Brownlee, right now, I would say with the corner from the Chiefs that they got via trade being out and on IR right now, I would tell you that Jarvis Brownlee, a late round draft pick as a rookie, is their best corner on their team right now. He's probably going to be fine. Everybody that's limited, I'm going to assume they're going to be able to play. But Jarvis Brownlee is probably playing the best football of any of the corners on their team right now currently. Justin Hardy, limited. Tajay Spears, we know he's a good complement to Tony Pollard. He's missed the last game or two. He was limited with a concussion. I think he'll be back this week against us. And Amani Hooker is a solid safety. Illness, I expect him to play this week. So, a lot of impactful names. How many of them truly are injured or will miss? I don't think a lot of them will. Maybe one or two of them, if any. But this feels like a list of guys that by the time we get to Thursday and Friday, most of these guys will be practicing and ready to go. Some of them will even be removed from the game status and injury report altogether, right? So there's that. Now, let's get to the matter of what was said by head coach Dan Quinn and quarterback Jayden Daniels. So neither of these press conferences today, to me, were very impactful. Nothing was really gleamed or said that, stuck out, got my ears perked up. No radar going off. DQ really talked a lot about damage control. Essentially, when you're on a 3-game losing streak and you're on a skid like this, you're trying to search for answers. You're trying to figure out and pinpoint what you can do better. They're leaning on the leaders. He talked about at this current moment, guys are stepping up. Wagner, I read a quote from him today where he's, kind of galvanizing the guys and saying, hey, we're good. We're a good team. We can get through this, et cetera, et cetera. So he talked about that. He talked about, working on specific items in practice. Like you can't fix all the things that ail this team at once. So you concentrate on one thing and you try to fix that. And so that's what they're working on. Obviously, let's go back to the beginning of the presser where he started off by talking about the injuries. And Eck, he said, good to see him kind of progressing in the protocol in terms of just from where he was on Sunday, where it was a scary situation, to where he is now. It feels good, but he's like, we're going to take it step by step. We're going to make sure we do right by Eck and, listen to the doctors and kind of go from there. And so Andrew Wiley's in the concussion protocol. He didn't really elaborate on him, but we know he's not playing this week either. Then he talked about Marshawn Lattimore, and he said, look, it's a soft tissue, so you really got to take your time. You got to make sure you're right on this. We're working closely with the staff. They're doing a tremendous job of making sure we don't miss anything. And so I think that there's a glimmer of hope within the building that this is the week that he'll be finally ready to suit up and give us something. So he sounded pretty optimistic there. But, again, they're going to continue to work him and we'll see what happens. He talked about Austin Seibert, and he said that he injured his groin. Apparently, Seibert came in on Monday and told them that his groin was tweaked somehow. I don't know. Like, at this point, I don't really care if it's fabricated or if it's real. He probably needed to sit down, right? Like, just for the sake of, I don't know what the reception would have been when he was coming out to kick his first field goal. Like, he probably just needed to have a break, so to speak. Anyway, and I'm pretty sure that he didn't want to miss any more time because we know what this league is, especially Seibert being a kicker that we got off the street. This could be your last opportunity to prove that you're an NFL kicker. You don't want to give your job to some other guy that was on the street and have him take advantage of the opportunity. It's not like you're an established kicker on a 3-year contract and you can miss as many weeks as you need to because your job will be here waiting for you when you're ready to come back. You're fighting to stay in this league just like Zane Gonzalez is fighting to get back in it. So that's an interesting situation. But I listened to DQ kind of fumble his way through an answer that, again, look, first of all, let me make sure I say this because I don't want you guys thinking that I'm not grateful for DQ and what he's done. And I think he's been excellent for us. And I love the environment he's fostered and cultivated. And I think we're going to win a lot of football games with DQ as our head coach. That said, last weekend gave Ron Rivera vibes. And one of his answers today was oozing and dripping of Ronald Rivera, coach speak. When he was asked about the lack of 4th down attempts here recently, it was one of the worst answers he's given to a question. It was the first time I felt like you're BSing me right now, DQ. You really don't have a real answer here. There was one question that he was asked about. I think it was the same question. Oh, there was one question that he was asked about kickoffs. He didn't even answer the question. And he said a lot of nothing. And I was like, DQ, he's like, I hope that answers your question. And I was like, no, it didn't answer the question, DQ. But we know the answer, right? He tried to not throw his guy under the bus because, DQ made the statement that it's not as easy as you think to kick the ball out of the back of the end zone, which it is, which is why they changed the rule, because too many kickers were kicking the ball out of the end zone and forcing touchbacks, and the NFL didn't like it because that kickoff was being rendered insignificant. And so because of that, they changed the rule. So it's not actually that hard to kick the ball out of the end zone or deep enough to where it's not worth it to return it. It's not that hard. Our kicker just can't do it, okay? And he can't say that. So instead of saying that, he came up with some cockamamie, answer that, like, yeah, sometimes, certain situations dictate that you kick the ball out of bounds, kick the ball, but it could be windy outside, or I'm like, none of those things have factored into anything that we've done, right? You decided, the only thing that he said that made any sense, that was true, was we believe in our kick coverage unit. And so we're going to give them as many opportunities to cover because we like the juice that they bring. They give energy to our offense, our defense. When a guy makes a big tackle, comes off the field, that energy is transferred over to the defense as they come onto the field, right? Just leave it at that then. But to tell us about the weather, and that has nothing to do with Austin Seibert being one of the worst kickers in the league at kicking the ball into the end zone. We don't want to kick it there first and foremost. And I've lauded and praised them all year long for not kicking it into the end zone and giving it to teams at the 30. Make them earn it. Last week was not supposed to be one of those make them earn it weeks. I was adamant about that. They just dropped the ball there, right? But that was a BS answer. And then when he was asked about the decisions to not go for it as often anymore, that was a pretty poor answer too. But look, at the end of the day, he said, like, there's certain distances that we get to, certain positions on the field that we get to where we're comfortable kicking field goals, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of echoing some of the things he said after the game that I didn't like. But then he said, hey, look, sometimes it's a distance situation. If we can get it to a 4th and 2 or 4th and 3 or 4th and 4, we might go for it. Well, earlier in the season, we were going for it on 4th and 2, 4th and 3, 4th and 4. Like, and he tried to make it out to be, well, it's more of a distance thing, JP, than it is, us not being more aggressive. And I'm like, no, that's not the case. It was 4th and 2, bro. What are you talking about? It was 4th and 2 against Dallas on the second possession of the game when you elected to kick a field goal from the 33-yard line that Austin Seibert missed. It was 4th and 2. That has nothing to do with distance. It wasn't 4th and 8. It was 4th and 2. You just didn't want to go for it. You bitched up. And, it's frustrating because he has been less aggressive. That's the answer to that question. He has been. He doesn't want to admit it, which is fine, but he has been less aggressive. And the players feel it. And it's funny that he said to the players, hey, we were playing loose and free early in the season. We need to get back to that. I'm like, well, it starts with you. You were coaching loose and free at the beginning of the season. There were no expectations. So you just went out and said, hey, who's checking for the Commanders? What do we got to lose? First year of the program, rookie quarterback, there are no expectations. We can go for it. Then shit got real when you started 7 and 2. Now all of a sudden, you do have expectations. And now you're starting to call games a little tight. He did say that there is a difference lining a guy up one side versus the other. He talked about the Colts doing it back in the day with Tom Moore, where they would just line Marvin Harrison Jr. on the left and Reggie Wayne on the right, and they wouldn't move those guys. That was a different football. That was a different era of football. Things have changed drastically from the days of X, Z over here, and you don't have to move them, right? Things are a lot more complex now. Defenses are a lot more complex, different looks. They're taking guys away. You got to adjust and adapt. And he said, look, as a coordinator, it does make a difference. If I know where a guy is going to be, it's easier to take a guy away if I know he's just going to be on the left side of the formation. How many times have I watched the last 3 weeks Terry run a slant, us try to get it to him on a slant, but because he's always in the same spot, it's easy for them to bring the safety down, have the corner play off a little bit, and then have a defensive end or a linebacker drop into that slant zone right there, that hook zone, if you will. But it's right underneath that slant, and now Jayden's got to turn it down. I've watched that happen each of the last 2 weeks. If you're going to line him up there, it's not hard for them to determine. They might throw the slant. You just drop into that hook zone right underneath that slant. Get him to turn it down. So there are advantages to moving guys around. And he admitted it. Well, if you know that, then do something about it. If you know better, do better. That's all. That's all I've ever advocated for. So yeah, he talked about Sean Taylor, 17th anniversary of his death. Still rings true to this fan base. I always tell you every year it's like it was yesterday. I remember where I was when I found out. I remember how I reacted to it. I was in college. I did not handle it well. It still seems surreal. Anytime somebody, like I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with all of these burglaries of these athletes' homes, but every time I hear Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, their homes were burglarized recently, and then the NFL sent out a memo to the NFLPA to tell the players, hey, be on high alert. There's a crime syndicate out there that is very organized, that is strategically targeting homes to break into. So be careful. And there have been other players' homes that have been burglarized as well. And every time I think about it in season, I think about Sean Taylor. Like, he wasn't supposed to be home. He was injured. That's why he was there. And that whole situation transpired. And you think, what if a player's home and some random idiot is in there with a gun? They get spooked because they're thinking that player's not there, but he is there. And now somebody loses their life, right? But he talked about the impact of Sean Taylor. And I think he said he addressed that with the team. I'm not sure if he did or not, but we again, I've always said, as long as I'm here and I have this platform, Sean Taylor's memory will never die. His legacy will always live on in us as fans. The ones that have watched him play, the ones that have come up that didn't watch him but have seen his highlights and feel like they watched him and feel his impact. But it's just crazy. We're getting close to the 20-year anniversary. It's just wild. 17 years. I always ask them to win this game. Rarely do they actually oblige. I stopped keeping count. I used to keep count of the record. I call this the Sean Taylor game. And I used to keep a record of this game. And we lost this game so often that I stopped because it became too painful to keep asking them to do. Because I always used to say, I don't ask you for much because we suck. We suck every year. And I would go, I don't ask you for much. I don't. Just don't embarrass me on primetime television in front of everyone, right? Because I don't want to have to deal with the backlash of that. Just don't embarrass me when we're in front of company. Like, if you want to get your ass kicked at 1 p.m. on Sunday afternoon while everybody else is playing, have at it, right? We're doing it in obscurity. But when you're on prime time and everybody's watching, I got to deal with the backlash as a fan. So please don't embarrass me. I would ask them that, and then I would ask them, just win the Sean Taylor game for me. And they would never do it. We get our ass kicked on prime time, and we'd never win the Sean Taylor game. So I stopped keeping count. Be nice if they could get it for me this year, but I'm not even going to hold my breath. Jayden Daniels' press conference was the most useless press conference we've gotten from him this season. Questions included, Favorite Thanksgiving dish? How do you adjust to cold weather? Was the Arkansas game the coldest game you've ever played in? These are some of the questions that he answered today that I don't really give a shit about. But he did talk about getting Terry the football. I didn't necessarily love the answer. I didn't hate it, right? He essentially said, look, Terry is Terry. Defenses are going to try to take him away. There is something to moving guys around, and, you know, there is an advantage that can be gained. But look, we get one-on-one with Terry, and when we do, we got to hit it. I agree. So when you do get one-on-one with Terry, I think you should look his way. Don't always feel like that's the case. It's that simple, right? And he, you know, essentially said, look, I'm going to go through my progressions and get the ball to where it's supposed to go. You're not really going through progressions right now. I don't feel like that's the case. So I would like to see, and again, I don't give a shit what he says to the media. It's about the action on the field. That's what I care about. And if I'm behind closed doors, I'm telling Jayden, hey, look, man, all things created equal. Go to 17, bro. Right? Let's not do this. Let's not play this game of Eric Bieniemy. The defense dictates where the ball goes. If that were the case, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase wouldn't be among the league leaders every year in receptions and yards, because if the defense dictated where the ball was going to go, they'd stop those guys from getting catches every week. That's not how that's supposed to work. You don't think teams game plan to stop CeeDee Lamb? They got him the ball on the first play of the game, and then they gave him the ball as a receiver. First play of the game, they threw it to CeeDee Lamb. On the second play of the game, they gave it to him as a running back. If you want to get your playmaker the football, you can get it to him. And anybody that tells you otherwise is lying to you. They're insulting your intelligence as a football fan. You're just not good at your job if you can't get your best player the football. But, you know, Jayden said it, look, I don't have to do any more than my 111th, essentially. Yeah, we got some injuries at the running back position, and, you know, you would like to have those guys out there, but I just need to do my job. I agree. Do your job. I just need you to be as sharp as you was at doing your job earlier this season. I need you to get back to that. That's it. Stand tall in the pocket, deliver the football. When running opportunities present themselves, take them. When you scramble, don't just scramble to be a runner. Scramble to extend to be a passer as well, right? Use your pump fake when you get out of the pocket. Like, don't just run out of bounds and submit. Don't just relegate yourself to, oh, they got me, I'm just going to run out of bounds. Pump fake that defender and see if you can get him in the air. Maybe you can run by him. Like, you got to start utilizing all of the resources that you have at your disposal, right? So, yeah, that was essentially Jayden today at his presser. Wasn't really a lot to glean from his press conference, but he did talk about leaning on the veterans. You know, with this losing streak, Ertz has a Super Bowl, Wagner has a Super Bowl. Those are the type of guys you really want to lean on in situations like this. And you want to get out of this funk, and they're going to continue to work to try and do it. So now we move on to our first look at the Titans in Week 13. Commanders will be wearing their all-black unis for the second and final time this season. They were able to win the first time wearing them this season in miracle fashion versus the Chicago Bears. We're looking to duplicate the outcome, but we are looking to get to that outcome a lot smoother and cleaner this time around. We'll see if they're able to achieve that against the Titans team that is extremely scrappy, despite their record. As we found out last week against Dallas, throw that shit out the window. They're playing better football. I'm actually glad that the Titans won on Sunday, because I really didn't want a hungry team that it just came close but lost and riding a 6-game losing streak or whatever it would have been. I really didn't want to run into that type of team like we just did against Dallas. Not that they're not going to be hungry. I mean, now they've tasted success. They want more, right? They want to win again. So they're going to be equally dangerous, but I think you're even more dangerous when you're starving for a win, right? As we just found out, Dallas wanted it more than we did last week. I felt that way. But this Titans team, they stopped the run. Joe Mixon had 14 carries for 22 yards. Joe Mixon has been one of the most productive running backs this year. After Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, Joe Mixon is probably your third leading rusher in the NFL. I'd have to guess. I'm not sure about that, but my guess is he's the third leading rusher in the NFL this year, is Joe Mixon. And they held him to 22 yards on 14 carries. They picked C.J. Stroud off twice and could have picked him off 3 or 4 times in that game. All right. They got to him. They flustered him a little bit. They stopped the run. They forced C.J. Stroud to have to beat them, and he wasn't able to do it. Now, his kicker missed a kick at the end that would have put them in a position to maybe win the game. And, other things happened. There were other factors, but this Titans team, they're going to fight, man. They're going to fight. And Calvin Ridley is a problem. He caught a deep ball on Sunday. Westbrook-Akine, you guys should know, he got us the last time for a 70-yarder that set up the game-winning score when we lost to them a couple years back, 2022. He scored a touchdown on a deep ball last week. Their tight end, Chig Okonkwo, caught a shallow cross. I was so jealous. Paint me and color me envious. He caught a 5-yard shallow cross and ran 70 yards for a touchdown. We could only dream. We could only dream of a tight end on our team catching a 5-yard, 6-yard pass and running 70 yards and nobody else on the field can catch him. Man, we need an athlete at the tight end position in the worst way, right after a long day. And we got issues up the seam. And he's one of those guys that can exploit it. So this is a dangerous Titans team. Tony Pollard ran for 119 yards in the win. Their kicker, Nick Folk, hit field goals of 51, 51, and 56 in that game. So if you're thinking about, maybe if we stop them here, they got a kicker that they aren't afraid to trot out from the 38-yard line for a 56-yard field goal. Now, that was inside, but they're not afraid to send Nick Folk out there. That's what I'm telling you. Might be to our benefit. We'll see. But he's a good veteran kicker. Will Levis is gaining confidence by the week. Last week, I was against blitzing. I wanted no parts of blitzing Cooper Rush. Rush 4, we should be able to get home. The pass rush is improving on a weekly basis. Want to play coverage. Don't want to give up anything cheap or deep. To hell with that this week, especially if you get Marshawn Lattimore back. Even if you don't, I don't give a shit. What we can't do is let Will Levis stand in the pocket and pick us apart. This man is getting sacked on average 6 times a game. He was sacked 8 times in this game. He was sacked 7 times last week. In the game before that, he was sacked 7 times in that game. The man is averaging over 6 sacks a game in terms of how many times he's put down on the ground with the ball still in his hands. He doesn't want to make the mistake, and he still threw a pick 6 in the game against the Texans. If we can't get to Will Levis, we have issues. And I'm at the point now where I'm like, hey, do what you got to do to get to him. Because that shit against Cooper Rush wasn't good enough. We don't have, and this is the thing, I can't watch what other teams do and just assume we can do it. That's abundantly clear. This is the second week in a row we're playing the team the Texans played the week before. I can't watch what the Texans do. They got to Cooper Rush. They forced him to fumble. They picked it up and scored with it. They got guys like Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter that can get to the quarterback. Danielle Hunter ran right past their rookie tackle. left tackle, J.C. Latham, ran right by him like he was standing still. Sacked Will Levis. We don't have a single guy on our team that can do that. Will Anderson Jr. hit a nasty in and out step, a Euro step on J.C. Latham, beat him to the quarterback sack. We don't have a single guy that can do that on our team. So I can't compare what the Texans are doing and how they got 8 sacks. I can't compare us to them because we don't have guys like that. I got to hope we can manufacture 3 or 4 sacks on a guy that's getting sacked 6, 7 times every week. I got to hope and pray that we can get to Will Levis and make him uncomfortable. On paper, we should beat the Titans. We ain't playing games on paper as we saw last week, and I am a nervous wreck about this game. You couldn't tell me nothing 3 weeks ago. The Titans, I wasn't even looking at the Titans. I was looking past the Titans. Now I'm over here quivering in my little boots over the damn Tennessee Titans. That's what we've been reduced to. Hoping we can score 20. We're still the number 4 scoring offense in the league or whatever, still top 5. But we ain't been that in almost a month since the Steelers game. We ain't been that. Really, we probably ain't been that since the Giants game, to be honest. But I digress. This is a dangerous Titans team. I don't have to tell you that. You already know. They scored 32 points last week in a victory on the road against the Houston Texans. Will Levis completed, 16 or 17 passes for almost 300 yards. 3 explosive throws, and he's had explosive throws in each of the last 3 games. He had a 96-yard touchdown pass against the Minnesota Vikings. A week ago? The week before that, he had like a 70-yard pass against the Chargers. This week, he's got a 70-yarder to the tight end. He's got a 40-yarder for a touchdown to a receiver, and he had like a 55, 60-yarder to Calvin Ridley that set up a touchdown. Bullshit if you want to. Think you won't get got. This is a dangerous game. And with the way we're playing, I am a wreck. But I digress. Let's get to social media maneuvers and what you guys have to say. And then we will transition out of here and let you get ready for your Thanksgiving grub and fun, right? So big shout out to the mob. Stand up. We in the building. Y'all know what it is. Big shout out to the mob for continuing to hold the kid down. And, you know, as I've said, and I'm not going to get too sentimental today. I'll do that tomorrow on the show when Thanksgiving hits. But I did that on my podcast because I'm not going to have a show actually on Thanksgiving. We'll have a show for you guys tomorrow on Thanksgiving. So I'll save all of that for tomorrow. But I am truly thankful for the mob and for all of you out there supporting, and also for my Patreon supporters. Big ups to you guys as well. So thankful for you guys. You are the bedrock of the Louie T Network. So with that said, let's get to the comment section real quick and then we'll get out of here. Commander Cole, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Commander Cole writes, thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Something that hasn't been talked about enough is the O-line getting their ass beat lately. Facts. I think that's been a part of Jayden being antsy lately. Yeah, it has been. Absolutely. When earlier in the season, teams were trying to pressure us and they were getting stonewalled, right? They were getting stonewalled. They would send pressures. We would pick the shit up, or we would get the ball out of his hands quickly. We were running the football effectively, so you had to pick your spots. There were a lot of, remember early in the season? Let me ask you this. When's the last time we had an explosive run? A run of 15 yards or more. Really, it should be 20. But let's just go with 15. When's the last time we had a run of 15 yards or more? And I'm not talking about De'Ami Brown's, jet sweep, reverse, whatever the hell it was. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about by a running back. When's the last time we had an explosive run by a back? Because there were explosive runs galore at the beginning of the season. And Brian Robinson had like 3 or 4 in the Giants game in week 2. It didn't matter who it was. Jeremy McNichols came in when Austin Eckler was out. He was getting explosive runs, right? Eck had an explosive run against Cincinnati for a touchdown, right? Jeremy McNichols had an explosive run against Arizona in week 4 for a touchdown. There were explosive runs galore. Jayden had an explosive run against Cleveland in week 5. I can go on and on. There were explosive runs all over the place. Jayden had a run against Dallas late in the game that was probably like 20-something yards. But our running backs haven't seen. So it's the O-line is definitely beginning beat up for sure. Like, that's a real thing. Michael Parsons by himself was a problem on Sunday. He beat almost every member of our offensive line. And I do think that has impacted Jayden's ability to stand tall in the pocket, because I don't know if the trust that he once had with this offensive line is there anymore. It's not there. And I personally, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I personally would draft a tackle if one exists that you believe in the first round. That's still at the top of my list of items that we need. I'd draft a tackle. If you're going to play Brandon Coleman, I'd put him at right tackle. He's not a left tackle in this league. They constantly have to chip guys and help him. He's a liability. He's a liability. But I don't think they're going to draft the tackle first. I think they're going to continue with the Brandon Coleman experiment, which is very disappointing to me. And I could be wrong, and he could ultimately end up being a really good tackle. It just doesn't feel like it. Like, usually, right? Like, the Bucks knew in Tristan Wirfs' rookie season, hey, we got us one. Like, when you got you one. Like, it's rare that a guy sucks initially or is subpar, and then on the offensive line, that is. There are other positions where you come in and you might not pick up the speed of the game or the playbook or whatever right out of the gates. But offensive line is one of those things where usually if you're good, you show it right away. I just don't think he's going to get that much better. But I could be wrong there. I could be wrong. But this offensive line hasn't been great. I agree. And that has a lot to do with Jayden not being wholly confident standing back there. But some of it too is play calls. Like, hey, get him the ball, get play calls in there that get the ball out of his hands quickly, so we can go tempo, so we can kind of stop defenses from being creative with their play calling and things of that nature. We got to get back to that. You got to get first downs to be able to get into a rhythm and a tempo. Miss P, thank you for being a member for 38 months. Salute to you. Ms. P says some members are having issues with the weekly pool. Yeah, I haven't uploaded that yet. I'm going to do that tonight. That's on me. That's my fault. I should have had those sheets up and available this morning, especially with the quick turnaround with Thursday night. That's on me. That's my fault. I apologize for that. Had a lot going on, and that slipped my mind. So that's one of the things that as soon as this show is over, I'm going to try to get up and running so that people can get their sheets submitted before the deadline tomorrow. In my mind, too, I was like, well, most people don't turn their sheets in until Thursday, but this is not your normal week. So I was definitely tripping this week. So I will take care of that. Thank you, Miss P. Appreciate that. Ricky Lowry Devers, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Lou, what's up, Ricky? 3-year big-time lurker. Hey, I knew that was the first time I'd seen your name, but didn't know you had been watching for 3 years, man. I really appreciate you. As a fellow lurker, as I've said many a times, I totally get it. He says, on to football. You say Ben is like Juice. Yeah, I do think Ben Sinnott is like Kyle Juszczyk for the 49ers. But he gets a touch or two per game to catch the D off guard. Yeah, he does. They usually try to throw him a bone or two. It doesn't always happen, but they try to. Yeah. Luke McCaffrey needs at least 2 to 3 targets average per game that falls on JD and Cliff Kingsbury. Look, we've seen the film, don't lie. We've seen Luke McCaffrey be open multiple times this season. And, JD not be working his side of the field, not looking at him, whatever the case may be, and he doesn't get the football. His snaps have been reduced here of late. He's not playing as much as he was earlier in the season. I liken it to a basketball rotation. It starts out at the beginning of the season. You might be playing 11 guys, and then as the season wears on, you shorten the rotation. You might be 9 guys that you play. You get to the playoffs, you're only playing 7 or 8 dudes, right? Kind of feels like at the beginning of the season, they were trying a lot of different stuff, formations, looks, seeing who could do what. And now we've gotten to the point of the season where they're kind of confident in what guys can and can't do, and they've shrunk down the amount of things that they're doing. I think they need to go back to expanding what we're doing and not shrinking it back down. But that includes Luke McCaffrey. I think we saw last week his targets. I think he was only on the field, 16 snaps? That game, 70 offensive snaps. He was only on the field for 16 of them? So, tough for him to have an impact when he's not on the field. But, he's got to make the most of his opportunities when he gets them, because he had a drop against I want to say it was the Steelers, right? Then he was open against the Steelers, obviously, and JD missed him. His numbers could look a lot different if plays were made, whether he made them, JD made them, or, he was open and got the football. But, remember the Bears game, he's open in the back of the end zone for a touchdown. And, our tackle, Andrew Wiley, essentially olays and whiffs on Montez Sweat. And so JD doesn't have a chance to hit him wide open in the back of the end zone, and makes one of his best throws of the season under duress, but he just couldn't get his toe down, right? So there have been opportunities there. Like, his time will go, it'll come. Luke McCaffrey's time will come at some point this season, I believe. We just got to continue to be patient. King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. King of the Bluegrass writes, don't really have much to say. Still in shock. I think a lot of people are. Just wanted to show my support and say this. What I have seen, especially with targeting Noah Brown, is JD5 is more comfortable throwing to bigger targets. I don't necessarily think that's it, King of the Bluegrass, but I do like the dialogue. I do like the conversation starter, right? So my hypothesis is he's just more comfortable throwing to the right side of the field. That's what I believe. I just think he's more comfortable setting up and throwing. Most right-handed quarterbacks are more comfortable throwing to their right. Okay? That's not a secret. It's easier to throw the football to your right as a right-handed quarterback than it is to throw across your body to your left. That said, if you know he's more comfortable throwing to his right, why not line Terry up over that way more often? If you think about JD's best throws this season, 95% of them have come on the right side, right? The Terry throw against Cincinnati, right? Right side. The De'Ami Brown touchdown, right side, right? Like, you think about all the big throws, the Terry throw against Cleveland when he rolled out to his right side, right? Like, if you think about his best throws this season, the 4th down completion that he was really throwing to Noah Brown that Luke McCaffrey intercepted to the right. Now, there have been throws to the left. The first deep ball he completed of his career was to Terry against Cincinnati in the first half to the left. He hit Terry against the Bears. Should have been a touchdown on the left. So he's done some things. The touchdown versus the Ravens, the 3rd down throw against the Ravens, both to the left. So he can throw to the left, but he's more comfortable throwing to his right. That's what I think. Because Malik Neighbors isn't a big target. He made beautiful music with him. Brandon Ayuk is the same size as Terry McLaurin, right? 6 feet tall, might be a little thicker, but similar size receivers. Same with Malik Neighbors. Same neighborhood, 6 feet, 5'11", 6 feet. Those are the receivers he threw to in college. So I don't necessarily know if it's a big target versus little target. I think he's just more comfortable throwing to the right. That's what I think. Really appreciate you, King of the Bluegrass. Robert Hernandez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Robert writes, hey, Lou. What's up, Robert? Just wanted to say thank you for being 100. I couldn't imagine watching anyone else for Washington content. Lucked out when I found you in 2020. I'm so glad to have you, man. I'm so glad you've been rocking with me this entire time. I never know when someone finds the content or stumbles upon it, but I always hope that when you finally show up, and you stumble upon the content, that you never leave. And apparently that happened with you, and I'm so grateful to have you on board, man. Really, truly appreciate you, Robert. And we're going to get through this together, man, because we're going to see this thing through. And I've told you guys this many a time, but when we get to where we're ultimately going, when we get to that apex, it's going to be that much sweeter. We've suffered so much together that when we get there, we're going to party together too. And we close. We started off this season 7-2. We getting close. We're going to get that talent. We're going to add talent in the offseason. We're going to put another draft class on top of the one we just selected. And we're going to have a nice free agency class. And this shit is going in the right direction. I want bonus football. I want it. I can taste it. I need it. I need JD5 to experience playoff football in his rookie season. And it's right there, and we just got to go get it. Brandon Davis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Brandon writes, question, why doesn't JD5 know once he is outside the tackle box, he can throw the ball away instead of taking 2-yard losses? That's another thing that they got to – I think they'll get that into his head. Like, those are minor things, but I hate it, right? I killed Derek Carr for that because, like, JD5's a young boy. I always say, leave that shit for the rookies and the young boys, right, that don't know no better, right? Derek Carr had been in the league for 15 years. I'm exaggerating, but he's been in the league for a long time, and he's still doing that stupid shit where he'll run out of bounds and still run out of bounds with the ball in his hand and be a 5-yard loss. Like, if you're a veteran quarterback, you've been in the league 3 years or longer, and you're still doing that shit, that's a problem. He's a rookie. They just got to tell him, hey, bro, you just gained 3 yards on first down, which is what he did when those 3 straight out-of-bounds runs. He gained 3 yards on first down, and then on second down, he ran out of bounds for a 2-yard loss and made it 3rd and 9. Like, where's the psychological sense in that, player? Right? You out of bounds, you out of the pocket, or excuse me, not out of bounds. You're out of the pocket, you're out of the tackle box. Just throw it past the line of scrimmage. Just flick it out of bounds. Live to fight another day. Don't take a 2-yard loss. If you're past the line of scrimmage, get what you can get. But if you're behind, if you bubble backwards and you can't get past the line of scrimmage, throw it away. They just got to make sure he's aware of that, right? Christopher McLaughlin, my guy. C-Mac, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, my guy. Chris, thank you for your unwavering support. Who writes, hey, Lou, happy Thanksgiving to you and the family. Likewise, Chris, man. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours, man. Really, truly do appreciate you and your generosity. Can't thank you enough for all you do for the Louie T Network. He says, we go into December as the 7th seed in the NFC. 2 questions. 1, what are your thoughts on the RFK Stadium being put to productive use for DC for stadium redevelopment? And 2, what are your thoughts on the original log being restored? So I think one of the biggest questions with DC, because I think it's more of a nostalgic thing. Like, people want the stadium to be where it used to be. Everything has changed, though. Like, the geographical landscape of downtown DC, right? And where the stadium, where RFK is, has changed. I think that when you look at RFK and the site, I think from a transportation standpoint, getting there, all of that is much easier than FedEx. It doesn't matter where you put the stadium. If you put it anywhere in the DMV, you're going to have traffic. So I don't really care about that. But I like the ease of which you can get to the stadium. I think most of us, as fans of a different generation and era, I think we wanted more of the experience stadium, meaning you build a stadium and there are subsequent bars and restaurants and activities and things that you can do that's close to the stadium that makes it feel like an experience. It's not just, oh, I'm going to a game, right? I don't know. There's just not enough space in DC. Like literally, when you go to DC, everything is built going up because there's no space. So there is no opportunities for that type of development where you have all these restaurants and bars and dives and different things you can get into while you're going to the game or after you go to the game or before you go to the game, et cetera, et cetera. But I always felt like the stadium belonged, like we're the Washington Commanders. We were the Washington Redskins. The stadium belongs in Washington, D.C. And so I'm an advocate for it going back to the RFK site. As far as the original log being restored, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that in particular. I'm trying to gather as much information on what exactly they want to do. Like, how do you envision all of this going? And certain things you can't recreate. It had its time. It was what it was when it was, and now you want something new. And the thing with this fan base and our situation that makes it so unique is we're a fan base that's struggling with an identity because they robbed us of who we were when they took our name and our logo. They took our identity. And so because of that, we as humans, because this is a human nature thing, you want to have some sort of tie to your identity, to what makes you who you are. And because they've stripped us down to essentially memories, you'd like to recreate some of the old memories and be able to say, we still have this or we still have that, even though they've taken our name and our logo and our identity from us. And I think we struggle as a fan base. We struggle with a lot of that because we're searching for things from the past to tie us to that past so that you can't forget it, right? And that it doesn't go away. And so I think there's a happy medium, right, that needs to be established, because I'm all about tying the past to the present and the future, but I'm also like, we need to create new memories too. But there's got to be a balance, and it's a delicate one. And yes, we are heading into December as the seventh seed. We are in the playoffs if it started today, and we got to stay in the fight. We got to stay in the fight. And the beauty of our situation is we control our outcome. We don't need anybody to do anything for us. Our 7-2 start allowed us to be in a position where we don't need anybody to do anything for us. I want to keep it that way. Really, I want to get up off this 7 line, right? So that if somebody gets got, it ain't us. But that loss to Dallas hurts because we were right there with Green Bay. Would have been with Green Bay at 8 wins. We would have created massive separation from the rest of the wild card teams, and you would have been, a win, a win and a loss by Green Bay away from boom. shooting up to 6, right? And, Minnesota got to play Detroit again. Minnesota got to play Green Bay again, right? Minnesota got to play Chicago. They almost lost to them, but they won. They got to play them again. You assume that Minnesota might lose a game or two down the stretch. Like, we could have caught them, but you tripping. You losing games that you should be winning, and now you put yourself in a position where you allowing teams like San Francisco, the Rams, the Cardinals, the Seahawks, the Bucks to all be in the mix. You got to start winning these games, man. You got to start winning these games that we supposed to win. The schedule is set up for us to succeed, but we got to take advantage of it. Christopher McLaughlin, double up, thank you for doubling up, my guy. C-Mac, thank you once again for your generosity. Can't thank you enough, man. Truly do appreciate you and all that you do for the Louie T Network. My guy, Chris, right? Hey, Lou. What's up, Chris? Terry is 4th in the league in receiving yards and has 11 catches the last 3 games. Crazy, ain't it? Crazy. He's had some big catches in terms of like yardage, like the 86-yarder that has, kind of bolstered his. Not like if we've watched Terry's season, we know good and well he didn't belong in the top 4 in receiving yards. He doesn't. Not based off the amount of targets he's gotten and the amount of activity that has come his way. But what we can say is that he's made the most of the targets that have come his way for the most part. A lot of them have been deep balls. The 2 against Cincinnati, the 1 against Chicago. Now, he didn't make the most of that, Chicago deep ball. That should have went for a touchdown. But he had, a deep ball, a beautiful deep ball catch on the sideline versus Pittsburgh. He had the slant on the RPO against Pittsburgh that he ran and made a big play out of. So we can keep going. He's had a bunch of deep balls that he's caught that's bolstered his average. And, again, you look at his yards per catch, I bet you he's somewhere in that 17, 18 range this season because the amount of catches and the amount of yards, then the math ain't mathing. He doesn't belong in the group with the likes of Jefferson and Chase and all of those guys that are in there because those guys are getting targeted. Those guys are getting the ball thrown to them. But it's because he's making big plays, like the 86-yarder, like the 55-yarder against Cleveland, right? Like that should have been a touchdown too. He could have maximized that one as well. We've seen games where Terry had 2 catches. They were both touchdowns against the Giants, right? He had 2 catches. How many catches did he have in the Arizona game? Not very many. One of them was a touchdown, though. Like, there have been weeks where they didn't get it to him. And we're like, yo, y'all got to get the ball to Terry McLaurin. It's just crazy where we're at. He says, just imagine if he was featured like Jefferson or Chase. That's all we've been saying. It's like, treat him like the number 1 wide receiver that he is. Look, we know he's not Justin Jefferson. We know he's not Jamar Chase. We know that. But he should be getting targeted like he's those guys because of what we have on this team and because he's one of the best contested catch receivers in the NFL. So again, if all things are created equal, you're running mirrored concepts, which means the same routes on both sides, and the coverage is similar on both sides. Why are we throwing to Noah Brown on 3rd and 8 instead of Terry McLaurin? That's always going to be my default question. But again, a lot of that I think is just line of sight. Jayden is more comfortable throwing to his right. Noah Brown is always lining up on his right. So that's who's getting the football. I feel like if you put Terry over there, maybe they would change the coverage and they would, slant the coverage that way. And maybe Jayden would then turn and throw backside to the Noah Brown and his X on the backside. But I highly doubt that. I think if you put Terry on that right side, he throw the football to Terry. I don't think it's a like a subconscious thing where he's deliberately throwing to Noah Brown or not throwing to Terry. I just think he's more comfortable throwing to the right side of the field. Just think about most of his completions this year, most of the activity. And again, he's a right-handed quarterback. It makes sense. You know what I'm saying? He says, 2 questions, 1 and 2. Which offensive and defensive player under the radar must step up for us to go to the playoffs? Under the radar. I don't know if we have many under the radar. Like everybody that's any good is on the radar. We don't have many under the radar players on either side of the football. Like that's just the nature of the talent on this team. We're not in a position where we can afford to keep guys under the radar, but let's see if we can't come up with a name or two here. So defensively, I think like really we need more pressure on the quarterback. And so we need more from Dorrance Armstrong. Period. Like I'm resigned to the fact that we're not going to get anything out of our defensive tackles from a pass rushing standpoint. And I'm not okay with it, but I have to be. So I'm not even tripping about that anymore, right? And if we are getting some kind of pressure from any of them, it's probably going to be Sheldon Day. As crazy as that sounds. But I know what Dante Fowler Jr. is. I know what Frankie Louvu is. And I know I can't count on anybody else. I knew we couldn't count on Cleveland Farrell to do anything but stop the run. That's been abundantly clear this season. And so Dorrance was getting good pressure early. He just wasn't getting to the quarterback, like getting him down, right? But he was getting pressure. He has been non-existent as a pass rusher here of late. I need him to step back up and start to affect the game. Even if it's as a run defender, I need him to impact the game some way, somehow. I'd even say like Noah Igbenogany had 2 pass interference penalties. Those hurt us big time in the game. I didn't agree with either one of them. Right? One should have been an interception. The other should have been a 3rd down pass breakup that forced a field goal. Instead, the Cowboys got a touchdown on that possession that they shouldn't have gotten. It should have been 4th down. That was a bad call by the official, but whatever. I need him to step up. Like Quan Martin is all over the place. I need Quan Martin to make a play. He's starting to give me like Cam Curl vibes in the sense that, hey, he'll be where he's supposed to be. He'll be around the football. He'll make tackles, but he ain't making no damn plays. I need him to take the ball away, man. Force a fumble. Pick a pass off. Tip something in the air that gets picked off. Do something to impact the game. Right? Offensively, I mean, there's really not many guys. I mean, we got what we got on offense. I mean, I don't know. I guess at receiver, you could point to guys like OZ and Luke McCaffrey. You know what? De'Ami Brown. You know, like remember the last time we played the Titans, who was the star of the show? De'Ami Brown. Like, if they're gonna run those 2 go routes, why not put De'Ami Brown in? At least we know he can run by a defender and get vertical. Like, stop putting Noah Brown in that position. He's not running by anybody. He might get a pass interference. He's been good at that, but he's not running by anybody and tracking the football. So stop putting him in that position. How about you put De'Ami Brown there? Like, that's what we did earlier in the season. Why haven't we run? I haven't seen De'Ami Brown run a go ball since the touchdown he called against Cleveland. Why not? De'Ami climbed the ladder. Yeah, he had to drop, obviously, against Pittsburgh. We still scored a touchdown, so I'm not going to kill him for that. But he had to drop against Pittsburgh. We had a great catch against Dallas on a dig route. He had another catch late that was negated by a penalty because Brandon Coleman wasn't lined up correctly on the line of scrimmage. But I'd like to see De'Ami Brown. Like, we know what he is as a wide receiver screen guy. He's our best one. With the ball in his hands, he's proven to be somewhat dynamic. Right? He had the little reverse against the was it against the Cowboys? Might have been against the Cowboys. Might have been against the Steelers. But either way, It might have been against the Eagles. I can't remember who it was against, but it was a pretty good run. Dyami Brown is a guy that I think can step up. And I honestly think, like, I don't know what Eckler's situation is going to be moving forward down the stretch. I think he's going to be back post-bye. But, and same with B-Rob, can't really say. He's been nicked up all year. I think they need to give more looks to Jeremy McNichols, especially if they're going to run in between the tackles. But we'll see. I'll just say this. We know what the tight ends are. You're not going to get too much more production out of that group. You know what the running backs are. Probably not going to get much more production out of that group. Receiver is where you can get a little bit more out of the group. And Dyami Brown, I think, is that guy. Him and Luke McCaffrey. But they got to get the ball to Luke first. At least Dyami's getting some opportunities here of late. Luke's not even getting any looks. So I'd go with Dyami Brown. So Dorrance Armstrong on defense, Dyami Brown on offense. Jaquan Cooper, stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB. Mob, you know what to do. Show Jaquan some love. Welcome him with open arms. Welcome to the squad. Jaquan Cooper, glad to have you on board. Jaquan Cooper, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Who writes, I'm excited to see Marshawn, and we all have to relax. Hard to relax, Jaquan. A lot of people, you know, there's like two different sides of the fan base. One that's like hyperventilating, going crazy, like, oh my God, the sky's falling. Then there's another side of the fan base is like, hey, we're fine. We're ahead of schedule. You guys are tripping. You should be happy. We're 7-5. Like, and then I think like that's what it feels like. You're either on one side of the fence or the other. There needs to be a middle ground, right? That's like, hey, this is where I feel like I am. Hey, it's not okay to start the season off 7-2 and then be okay with losing because we're ahead of schedule. Nah, I'm not cool with that. But at the same time, the season is not over. We don't suck again. Like there has to be a middle ground. That's where I feel like I am. Like, hey, 3-game losing streak sucks. Still think we can make the playoffs. Let's flush November. Let's get back to playing winning football. The opportunities are there in front of us. Let's take advantage of them in December, right? November was awful. Okay, flush it. Let's move on. We'll talk more about that on tomorrow's show. But I can't wait to see Marshawn Lattimore as well. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, it's this week. It feels like it's going to be this week. But they're not going to rush him. And again, I can't help but think, and I've brought this up for the last 2 weeks, I can't help but think, and DQ has already told us, that's not going to matter, right? That the bye week is looming after this game, and you could give him an additional 2 weeks to rest, and he'll definitely be ready after that, right? What you don't want to do is rush him back prematurely, and then something happens with that thing, and now you don't have him for the rest of the regular season or the next 3-4 weeks again, right? So, again, delicate balance. I think he's going to be ready this week. But can't help but think about that bye week looming, and would they want to just give him that extra time? DQ said, nah, that's not factoring into their decision-making. If he's ready to go, they're going to put him out there. And I think if you beat Dallas, it's a lot easier to just go, you know what? We'll wait till after the bye week. Now, after losing to Dallas, you need a spark. You need Marshawn Lattimore out there as fast as you can get him out there. And they're not going to rush him. But if, you know, all things are equal and he's ready, you put him out there. If he was ready, but you could convince yourself he could use another week, why not just let him wait until after the bye? If we were to beat Dallas, that decision is easier to make. Jaquan Cooper, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, also love the new content. We banged up on the O-line. I think that's the core of our problems on offense. I think it rushes JD5. The offensive line definitely is a part of his process being sped up, without question. There was a play in the game where a couple of plays actually, where he vacated the pocket where he didn't have to. And one of them, it was blatantly obvious that he didn't need to go anywhere. There was no pressure whatsoever, but he does not trust what's in front of him right now. I don't blame him. And teams are sensing it, and they're blitzing him more, right? They're sending 5 guys. They're coming with 6. We empty the set, and teams are like, oh, bet we're blitzing now. And they're running longer route combinations. So he has no outlet to get rid of the football. It's the same thing that happened to Sam Howell. The only difference is Howell didn't have the wheels to get away like JD5 does. But you can't be running 10-yard, 12-yard routes on 3rd and 4 with an empty set. Now they're blitzing. We're losing one-on-one matchups up front, whereas earlier in the season we were stonewalling guys. Now somebody's getting beat. One of the 5 dudes are getting beat. You got Trent Scott at right tackle, Brandon Coleman at left tackle. You got to help and chip him on the way out, even if you got an empty set. So you're losing an eligible initially, right? We become very predictable. Micah Parsons said that on tape, I told you we were going to give him the TJ Watt treatment. All we did with TJ Watt was every play we chipped and we released. We delay released with the tight end or the running back. So got a piece before they got out, leaked into the flats. Well, Dallas saw that on tape and they said, you know what? We're going to move you inside over the guard so they can't chip you. Then he beat our guards. So we essentially helped account for our own demise on offense because we were so predictable. And we never adjusted to, Michael Parsons is inside. Maybe we should keep a running back inside to chip him from that spot. And then you get out into your route. We never adjusted. Like, if I'm playing Michael Parsons the next time when we play them in week 18, the plan is if he moves inside, you either double team him, guard and center, or the running back comes in automatically. I don't care if the running back was all the way out wide. I don't care if he was offset by the tight end or by over there offset by the tackle rather. You come back underneath and you get right next to JD5 on the side of where Michael Parsons is, and you help. You double team. That's your job. But yes, I agree. The offensive line hasn't been what it was earlier in the season, for sure. Niners fan, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Niners fan writes, hey, Lou, the winners and losers form. Yeah, I'm aware. So I assume I effed up and missed the picks. No, you didn't. No, you did not. That's on me. I made the mistake. I didn't put the sheets out yet. The picks have not been out yet. I'm going to do that right after this is done. I should have done that first thing this morning. I had other things going on, and I totally forgot. And so you didn't miss anything. That's on me. I'm going to fix it, and it'll be up and available shortly after this show has met its conclusion. So that is the last super. So we are going to get out of here. I want to thank everybody for joining me on this show. I'm here to tell you that the Dallas game was ugly. There's no two ways about it. But the offenses on tape were correctable, and this team is playing hard still. They're tired on offense, I believe. The defense is getting better, but they have limitations, and you know it's only a matter of time before the defense gives something up in the course of the game, whether it's the second half, the third quarter, the fourth quarter, or both. So you got to take advantage of when the defense gets stops. That's what we did early in the season. We have to get back to that by moving the football, converting on third downs, getting into the red zone, and then scoring touchdowns, applying pressure. We cannot miss opportunities. We had too many opportunities to score points and put Dallas out of their misery early in that game, and we didn't take advantage. Week 13 presents a new opportunity for us to get our shit together. I'm looking forward to seeing them do that. Albeit I'm not as confident as I once was. I'm hoping that they can get their act together and turn this thing around. So That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders Nightly News. I look forward to chopping up with you guys tomorrow. Happy Thanksgiving in advance to you, but you'll see me tomorrow. Again, none of the shows that I do the rest of the week will be in real time, right? So what that means is there'll be pre-recorded episodes that will give you the Commanders Nightly News feel that you always get and the topics that we always talk about. However, like the injury report won't be updated because I don't have access to it. I'm not going to be in the office until Sunday. So I'm going to be out of the office from Wednesday all the way to Sunday, or from Thursday rather to Sunday. So you'll get an upload from me tomorrow and Friday like you normally would. And then we'll be back in the office together on Sunday, and we'll be back off and running and hopefully talking about a Commanders victory. But until then, you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you. See you guys tomorrow. Take care.